Hi, welcome to Unlock Debate. Today we're going to be learning about CNDF format. So, just as there are many forms of government, there are also many forms of debate. You have CNDF, Lincoln Douglas, World, Public Forum, British Parliamentary, etc. And in this lesson, we're going to be learning about the Canadian National Debate format. A CNDF round consists of two teams, the proposition team and the opposition team. Each team consists of two people, the first speaker and the second speaker. Let's talk about structure. This grid shows what CNDF structure looks like. We start with the first proposition speech, then move on to the first opposition speech. And after that, we have the second proposition, then second opposition, then opposition summary, and finally, to close the debate, the proposition summary. Notice that proposition both opens and closes the debate. The little numbers at the bottom of each rectangle represent the maximum amount of time you're allowed to speak for. For juniors, those are students grade 9 and below, you can speak for a maximum of 6 minutes. For speakers, grade 10 and above, you may speak for a maximum of 8 minutes. The long speeches, so the ones that are 6 or 8 minutes, are what we call constructive speeches. And the short speeches, which are half the length of constructive speeches, are what we call summary speeches. Every speaker gets 15 seconds of grace time. This means you're allowed to speak 15 seconds longer than the allotted time. So technically, your actual maximum is 6:15 if you're a junior and 8:15 if you're a senior. Okay, now let's go over what exactly you should be doing for each speaker position. To open the debate, we start with the first proposition speaker. They have 3 duties. First is to provide a model, second, an argument, and thirdly, another argument. What is a model, though? A model contains a set of definitions that clarify the motion. So that looks like pointing out who this house is and providing definitions for key words. A model should also contain your stance, so just explaining what you do or do not support. Here's an example of a model for the motion, "This house would ban zoos." I define this house as the government. I define zoos as for-profit institutions that display living animals for entertainment. I define banning zoos as making it illegal to continue running a zoo. Our stance is that we would ban zoos. Moving on, we go to this first opposition speaker. They have 4 duties. First, provide a stance. Second, refute proposition. Third, provide an argument. And fourth, provide another argument. Then comes the second proposition speaker. They have 2 or 3 duties. First, they must refute opposition. Second, they must do reconstruction, in other words, defend their partner's arguments. And thirdly, they may provide a new argument if they wish. This is not mandatory, but sometimes it is useful. The second opposition speaker will do the exact same thing. Now we get into different territory. The first speaker on side opposition will return to give a summary speech. Their job is to summarize the debate and prove to the judge why they should win. The key word here is summarize. That means you're not allowed to bring in any new arguments. You can bring up new examples, new refutation, but you cannot create a new argument. If you do, the judge will discount it. Note that your summary speech is very short. It's only half the length of a constructive. That means you have to be very strategic with your timing. The next video in this series will talk about how you can give a good summary speech. And to close the debate, the first speaker from side proposition will return to give the proposition summary speech. The same stuff I mentioned when discussing opposition applies here. Let's do some practice. For the sake of this exercise, pretend you are the first opposition speaker. Your job is to create a stance for the following motion. This house would ban zoos. At this level, it should only be a few sentences long, so give yourself a minute. Alright, so hopefully you've written a stance. Here's my example. We would not ban zoos. We would instead implement laws that require zoos to treat animals well. Of course, in a real debate round, you should elaborate on what those laws do specifically and how they'll function. But for the sake of time, I won't get into those details. Something very important that you should take away is that opposition can have counter policies. It's something you can be very strategic with. Because I can guess that proposition will run a case about how zoos are abusive. So if my stance allows me to solve that abuse without actually banning zoos, then it'll be really easy to win the debate round. You should always consider things like this when crafting a stance. Okay, in this next exercise, you are the first proposition speaker. Your job is to create a model for the following motion. This house would make public speaking a mandatory subject in schools. Give yourself a few minutes. Alright, here's my example. I defined this house as the BC School Board. Public speaking classes are classes where students learn how to write speeches and then present them in front of groups of people. Mandatory subject means we're making public speaking classes replace gym classes, and they'll be implemented through grades 8 to 10. Our stance is that we would make public speaking a mandatory subject. Good job, and thanks for watching. Make sure you watch the next lesson on summary speeches. Thank you.